Now, there are those who say that if they would have drafted Carmelo, that for some reason the Rasheed Wallace trade never would have occurred. I don't know why that people believe that, but it's true. So that's a lot of people said Danny Ainge would have never made the trade because the Pistons would have been more formidable at the time than they actually were. I don't know. It made no sense.
The Eastern Conference Finals the year before.
Yeah, I know.
So they're already pretty formidable.
I understand that, but that's what people were saying. Look, do I think he would have won the championship anyway? I don't know. Who knows? Because later in that interview, he talks about, well, the guy that would have played ahead of Carmelo, maybe, was Tayshaun Prince.
Right.
And then they were talking about, the greatest block I've ever seen. They talked about that play. Who knows? Look,
you can't pick one play when you're talking about a player. Everything's way different.
I know. I'm just saying that's what they talked about.
Maybe the Pistons would have had more than 57 points.
Yes.
In that game or whatever it was, 63-61.
Right. They also talked about how Larry Brown and rookies don't always get along so well. Look, can you say for sure that they wouldn't have won? I'll take Ben Wallace's word over mine or yours. But the problem is that it hurt him down the line. It didn't hurt him those 2 years.
I mean, look, you can't rewrite history. And the fact of the matter is they won. They won one, but they did win. So I understand the belief that, if we had drafted Carmelo, it would have been totally different, because it would totally have been different. But I don't necessarily think it would have mean they wouldn't have won, because in that cut, he was talking about the chemistry on the team.
Right.
Right? And granted, that team had great chemistry. But then come March or April or whenever it was, they acquired maybe the greatest chemical mixer ever in Rasheed Wallace, and that didn't throw off their chemistry.
No, but Rasheed,
which meant they had strong chemistry.
But let's be fair. Rasheed was always looked upon as this wild guy because of the way he worked with the officiating and sometimes the coaching. It wasn't as a teammate. People loved him as a teammate.
Right. But you just said it, officiating and coaching.
But he had the perfect coach. If Larry Brown wasn't there, if Carlisle was there, I don't think that trade would have been made either.
No, that's probably true. But the fact, I don't know. Sometimes I think we overthink all this stuff.
Of course, Carmelo was a great player.
No, but I'm just thinking we overlook the fact that talent tends to win out. And the thing about the Pistons is that they are unique in that they didn't have a true superstar and don't have a Hall of Famer yet. Maybe they will. Of all the championship teams of the last however many years, every single one has included at least one, sometimes two, sometimes three Hall of Famers. And that team right now appears to have zero, although, I don't know, I think Ben eventually will get into the Hall of Fame personally, but just the way the Basketball Hall of Fame works. But more often than not, the best teams win.
Yeah.
And you're adding Carmelo Anthony to a team that already had Chauncey and Rip and Ben and maybe Rasheed, maybe not. That's a pretty talented team. So I guess in response to Ben, I would say, I'll take my chances. I really will. I still think they would have been a real contender.
Well, let's suppose for the argument that they wouldn't have gotten Rasheed. Would they have? Carmelo obviously would have been more of an offensive threat than Tayshaun. But without Rasheed's defense, would they have won again? I don't know. Rasheed was really good defensively, don't forget.
Yeah, I mean, like when he rotated off of Ori?
I'm talking about 2004. We're talking about that.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh,
okay.
No, well, that was a brain fart. He's still a good defensive player.
I know. He's a good defensive player, but it was Ben who got most of the credit for playing the interior defense.
Right.
When they played against the Heat in the 2005 Eastern Finals, it was Ben who was going head-to-head with Shaq for most of that time.
I think that some of this is Carmelo's a pretty stained athlete at this point.
He's making a nice little comeback.
He played pretty good the other night, then again, that was against the Pistons.
This comes down to would he have worked with LB?
Right.
If he would have followed, there is a chance he would have really, liked the way LB was and worked on him, and it could have made his career completely different.
Right, because later in that interview, because I listened to it, Ben was saying that Carmelo, if he didn't get playing time early, would have been bitching to this player, and who knows what the locker room would have been like. I don't know.
I don't know that's the case.
We don't know. That's the thing. We don't know.
He won a national title under Jim Boeheim.
Yeah, and Boeheim's a bit of a hard ass.
Yeah.
And Boeheim loves Carmelo, raves about Carmelo. And, Carmelo has had his issues over the years, but you can't deny the guy was just a pure scorer.
Oh, he's a great player, but you're also taking away, and I love him, as you know, Larry Brown. But Larry Brown coached Carmelo and some of those other guys in the Olympics that year after the championship, and they were horrible. a lot because of Larry Brown.
You know, Jamie, and what you said, I kind of read between the lines. I think you think they could have very well easily won multiple championships.
Well, they got should have.
Or
they
had
got
a
to game
had
7.
a more of a dynasty.
Right. I mean, let's face it. The defense was never the issue. It was they just all of a sudden would be unable to score in stretches of time where they looked. I mean, those Piston teams, and it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it very, very much. However, when they were bad, they were painfully bad.
Oh, yes.
They'd go through stretches where you're like, oh, my. It's like they were setting basketball back 50 years.
Well, the game 7 of the finals when they were leading, it was before they blew that lead, it was so ugly.
Bill, cell phone, 97 won the ticket. Hello, Bill.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. I agree with Ben. I don't think Carmelo would have allowed us to win a championship. He didn't fit with that team at all. He wasn't a defensive player. He never won anything in the NBA. He's never taken a team over the top in the NBA in his whole career. But I think the play would have been to draft Dwayne Wade, and then you end up with a 3-guy rotation of Chauncey Rip and Dwayne Wade, a la the Bad Boys, that probably could have took you to a championship and probably would set you up for the future also.
Well, I mean, look, now we're doing total revisionist history because I don't even – we'd have to ask Dumars and John Hammond and people who were part of the draft process because it was pretty clear from the get-go that it was Darko.
Right.
So I don't know how much they agonized over Darko v. Carmelo. I don't think Wade was ever even considered. I really don't. And
they didn't even work out Carmelo, from what I understand.
And to be fair, Wade, he had a great NCAA tournament that year, got Marquette to the Final Four, and really put his name on the map in a lot of ways.
Put Tom Crean on the map.
But as that draft kind of developed, he was definitely not a second-class citizen, but there was a top 3. Right. And it was LeBron, Carmelo, and Darko. Wade was the next tier.
Correct.
And he's turned out to be a Hall of Fame player.
Look,
and give him credit.
If the Pistons would not have selected Darko, I think Denver had the third. They were taking Darko, and there were thoughts that if it was the other way around, they would have taken Darko 2, and the Pistons would have had Carmelo 3. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's revisionist history.
I think if the Pistons would have drafted Wade, that they would have had a ridiculous dynasty.
I think if the Pistons,
I think there's a chance LeBron would have played here eventually.
Ooh, now you sound like Gene or Adrian Wojnarowski. 8:45 on 97.1 The Ticket. 248-539-9797 is the telephone number. Coming up, Steve.